Bruchim habayim and Erev Tov. Welcome and good evening from Jerusalem. I'm so delighted to welcome you all. And first and foremost, I want to wish a very, very happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers out there and to those who are celebrating their mothers. If you're a mother, we wish you all of the best from Israel. And it is my delight and privilege to welcome you to the first installation of Spotlight on Schechter. This is a series that is inspired by our Atid celebration, which took place in January in South Florida, in which we celebrated the 35 years of leadership of David Galinkin and 15 years of Saul Sanders as chairman of the board. We also welcomed our new chairman of the board, David Kext, and received so much approbation for what it is that we did in that event in terms of raising the profile of all that we do at Schechter, that we decided in this very, very special series, we want to profile the heads of each of our branches, each of our amutot. And so tonight in Jerusalem, it is a special gift to be sitting with a very, very special colleague, a very special mother, and that is Rabbi Chaya Rowen Baker. I feel a very, very special connection to Rabbi Chaya Rowen Baker in so many ways, but mainly because we started in our positions on the very, very same day, almost 3 years ago. And so it's a joy to be sitting with you here in the Schechter Library. Rabbi Chaya Rowen Baker is Dean of the Schechter Rabbinical Seminary. And for 8 years prior to becoming dean, Rabbi Chaya Rowen Baker was coordinator of practical rabbinics for our rabbinical school. She was ordained in 2007 and became rabbi of Kilat Ramot Zion. Ramot Zion is truly one of the flagship Masorti congregations that we have in Israel. Rabbi Chaya Rowen Baker holds an MA with distinction in Talmud and in Jewish thought from the Schechter Institutes. She completed her BA at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem in Jewish history and archaeology. She was a fellow of the Honey Foundation, and she is a member of the Rabbinical Assembly Executive Council. In 2015, Rabbi Chaya Rowen Baker became the first Masorti rabbi to be invited to teach Torah at the Israeli president's residence. Rabbi Rowen Baker lives on French Hill, Jerusalem, with her husband Itai and their 4 children. So Rabbi Chaya Rowen Baker truly has her hands full with her own children as well as her students, who in many ways are her children as well. So it's in this spirit that I would love to begin, Chaya, with your own personal journey to the rabbinate. If you could fill us in on what it is that inspired you, what planted the seed for you, and how you ended up on this path.
Thank you, Rabbi Berkowitz. And actually, it's a huge pleasure to be here with you tonight. And it's a big honor to be the first of this series. I grew up in a home where my mother was Reform and my father was Orthodox. I say was because they're still with us in this world. Identities shift a little bit, and I don't know, I don't want to speak for them today, but as a child, my speech was, when people would ask me, are you, in Hebrew, in Israel, at-datiya, right? Are you religious? So I would say yes, but immediately I would feel like I had to sort of say, my mother is Reform, my father is Orthodox, because, you know, like when you say you're religious in Israel, people assume certain things about you. So that was my story. My mother is Reform, my father is Orthodox, and that was sort of and that was not an easy home to grow up in. It was not an easy way for my parents to build a family, but they had to be very true to their Jewish perspectives, which is one of the first things that I can remember about how our home was. It's my parents didn't start out Reform and Orthodox. They started out sort of just very deeply Jewish, and they found their paths in their own lives. And I learned from this that you have to be serious about your Judaism and figure out who you are and what is right for you, and follow that path. And I also learned that there is true importance in the existence of many paths in Judaism. And as later as a rabbi, I realized I'm thankful for the fact that there are so many brands of Judaism, so many flavors, so many streams of Judaism that really I don't need to. I can be true to myself without giving up on my principles, because I don't have to say yes to everyone. If I can't give the right answer, then someone to my right or to my left can give an answer, can help out, can be there for those people who are in their own search. So growing up in this house of orthodoxy and reform, my parents had to make a lot of compromises, as you can imagine, and part of their compromises in our education led them to send all of us to Tali schools. And from Tali, we all kind of got sucked into Noam, the conservative youth movement. And in the conservative youth movement, we all found a home, a spiritual home, and a keilah, a community. And that was my community growing up, with the voices of tradition and the voices of change in my ears. How could I not turn out to be a conservative Jew? And then as I grew older and I was trying to figure out my own path, I realized that I really didn't know enough. I had been through the Tali system, but only until 9th grade. And then I had been in a secular high school, and I really felt like I lacked an official Jewish education. And I knew a lot of practice. I had a lot of passion. I had a lot of ideological identification and a lot of love for everything that I knew, but I didn't really have a strong hold of text and of Jewish learning. And I felt like I really needed to fill those gaps. And so after my BA, and as you mentioned, in archaeology and Jewish history, during my BA, I started studying on my own and in the Chavruta program at the Hebrew University. And I really felt like I had to find a Beit Midrash. And then I was approached by the then dean of the Rabbinical Seminary, Rabbi Harvey Merovich, and he said, "Well, how about now that you're finished with your BA, how about coming to rabbinical school?" So I said, "Well, what do you learn there?" And he said, he told me about the program, the curriculum, and it was exactly what I wanted to learn. It was all of the classical texts that I felt like I loved whatever I knew, and I needed to learn more of, and it sounded perfect. And I knew that the teachers were amazing and the curriculum sounded perfect. And I said, "Well, how much does it cost?" And he said, "It doesn't cost anything, and we'll pay you." So I said, "That's great. So what do I have to do in return?" And he said, "All you have to do is work for 3 years after you are ordained as a rabbi." So I thought to myself, well, a rabbi, what does a rabbi do? A rabbi teaches. I love Jewish education. I can work with youth. I can teach in Batei Midrash. Yeah, let's do that. I'll work for 3 years as a rabbi, and after that, I'll figure out what I want to do with my life. So I went to rabbinical school right here at Schechter, and I loved, of course, I loved the studying part. But what really made the change is when I was interning in a community in Omer with Rabbi Michael Gretz, and Alav Shalom, and I neglected to say, before I started rabbinical school, I told my husband, Itai, I said to him, "Itai, I'm going to rabbinical school, but don't worry, I'm not going to be a congregational rabbi. I just want to study and I'll work for 3 years." And then, so I started this year as an intern in Omer, and I just saw how the state of Israel needs us rabbis, needs teaching, needs identity, how thirsty people are, how well received everything that we are doing is. And this is in a small town in the south of Israel. And imagine what we can do in all of Israel. And I remember at the end of that year, I came to my husband and I sat him down and I said, "Itai, I think I need to be a congregational rabbi." And he looked at me and he said, "I knew from the beginning this is where that was going." And then I graduated here and I became, as you mentioned, the rabbi of Ramot Zion. And that was an amazing shlichut, amazing. How do you say shlichut?
Amazing
Mission.
mission,
I don't know. Mission.
endeavor.
Mission sounds.
Yes.
Anyway, for 16 years, and then I decided that I wanted to take part in training the next rabbis who will feel this way and do that kind of work.
So clearly, Chaya, we owe a major debt of gratitude to Rabbi Harvey Meyervich for reeling you into our rabbinical program. And I think of how beautiful and poetic it is that your teachers ended up becoming your congregants. I'm thinking of Rabbi Meyervich, I'm thinking of Rabbi Tucker. How beautiful it is that when you finish Professor Lee Levine, when you finished your rabbinic journey here in our program at Schechter Institutes, that you went on to serve in this magnificent congregation of some of the most legendary conservative rabbis.
I'm still shaking as you describe that. Yeah.
And I also think of how beautiful it is that you inherited a school with so much history, right? A school that began in 1984, that ordained its first class in 1988. Since then, we have about 115 alumni of our rabbinical program. And here, this precious program is handed over to you 3 years ago as you stepped up and became dean of the program. I'm curious to hear from you, Chaya, if you could talk a bit about the state of the program today, where our Israeli rabbinical program stands, and what your vision and hopes are over the next 5 years. Where do you want to take this amazing program?
So I'll start with really acknowledging how true it is what you were saying. It's such a privilege to be leading the school to which I owe so much, and in which I was educated and ordained, and I'm always conscious of that, of how big a responsibility I have to continue this mission. So we currently have 12 Israeli rabbinical students, and we are joined by the students from JTS every year, who are a wonderful addition to the program. They study everything with us fully in Hebrew, and it's an amazing opportunity to build bridges and connections and collegial relationships for the future on both sides of the ocean. And
not only the JTS students, we also have Seminary students.
So the Seminary students are also joining us for either one semester or two. And it's really such an important part of our program, especially in these days when worldwide Jewry is dealing with so many challenges. And it's so important that we in Israel understand what's going on there firsthand and develop a direct relationship and communication. And they are here and they receive tools and kind of koach and inspiration to then go back and serve their communities in a way that's connected to Israel and that can deal with the complexities of this time. So the Israeli rabbinical students are currently studying all together. They study kind of in a cycle of a 3-year cycle, and they come from all walks of life, also vary in age. But what is common to all of them is really a sense of dedication and of purpose, and a sense that this is a real time of need for courageous and wise and sensitive and inspired leadership in Israel. And in many different ways, they bring their own stories into the program, and they come together to kind of be a group of colleagues and build each other together to serve the people of Israel. I would like the program to be bigger. I don't want it to be too big, because also we are a program very much oriented towards placement. We want people to then go and serve in communities, in institutions, and unfortunately, there aren't that many of those in Israel today for liberal Jewish leadership, for conservative Jewish leadership, conservative capital C. However, it would be good to grow a little bit so that we can split up the years, so that they can specialize in certain things. That's another thing. The main focus of our training these days is, or not only these days, I think this has been the focus of the school for a long time, is congregational leadership. And while that is an amazing, I think that's the best job in the world, it still is not right for everyone, and people would like to find themselves in a variety of different rabbinates. I do still believe that rabbis who receive an education towards being a congregational rabbi receive the broadest rabbinic education possible, and they receive a very, very thorough rabbinic education, and they get tools that they will need everywhere they go. But I would like to have the possibility to create specialty tracks, like, for example, have some people who maybe aren't really going to be in the field, but are just going to be serious scholars and develop our halachic world and studying and kind of the Beit Midrash aspect of our movement. And some will go and serve in congregations, and some will be social activists and, sort of work within the general population of Israel. Right now, they all have to do a bit of everything, and that's a lot to ask. And we try to allow them training in a variety of those fields, but it would be great if we had the possibility to specialize in different tracks. We also are putting a lot of effort. Maybe we'll talk about that later on in our conversation. We are putting a lot of effort into creating pipeline programs for our rabbinical seminary, because it's not going to work if we have to develop leadership at age 30 or 40 or 50 or 60. We have to develop leadership at age 20 or 15 or 13 and 12. And that's part of our mission as well.
Chaya, part of what I love so much about the SRS, the Schechter Rabbinical Seminary, is that it really is an international hub of rabbinical students. As you're pointing out, JTS students come to study in our program. Seminario students from South America come to study here as well. And I know in addition, we also have 2 rabbinical students studying in Ukraine. Can you talk a bit about those students in Ukraine?
Yes, with pleasure. They are so amazing. This is an initiative of my predecessor, Rabbi Avi Novis Deutsch, together with Rabbi Irina Gritsevskaya, who's the head of our Midrashet Schechter, who runs an amazing program. You'll probably hear from her in a few weeks, right, in Ukraine. And they together collaborated in the early days of the war between Ukraine and Russia. They recognized that since Ukraine is shut down and some people can leave, not everyone can leave, and no one can come in, there was an urgent need to develop local leadership for the Jewish communities there, who, in addition to all the regular needs of Jews in living in isolated not isolated, living in Jewish communities surrounded by non-Jews. In addition to those needs, they have the needs of people under war, people constantly being bombed and afraid and shut down in their homes, and no electricity, and all of those difficulties and hardships. And so they started this program, and I was very, very privileged to inherit the program of ordaining. It started out with 3 rabbis. It's now 2. The 2 truly amazing individuals to serve in 2 communities, in the community in Kharkiv and our community in Kharkiv and the community in Chernovitz, and they are just really the things that they do are and the amount, the scope of what they're studying. They're studying to be ordained as rabbis, but they're already functioning as rabbis in their communities community building and organizing and supporting and celebrating, and summer camps and Shabbat experiences and holidays and all of this under war. They're really amazing. They participate in our program. Unfortunately, they can't come and be with us in person. We mentioned JTS and Seminario, but we also actually have, occasionally we have students from Europe who come and study with us. And part of their studies they do on Zoom, and part of their studies they come with us and study with us. So the Ukrainians can't come and be with us because they're not allowed out of Ukraine, sorry. So they participate only on Zoom, but we are making a big effort to really kind of include them in not only in the classes, but also in the extracurricular activities as much as we can, in the special learning opportunities that we have, in discussions that have to do with the rabbinate and with with our identities as future conservative rabbis. And they've also been a huge addition to the program. They're really just truly amazing individuals, and it's really a blessing to have them with us.
Fantastic. It's so impressive when you think of the breadth and the geographical scope of the people that we're touching, of our students. What I want to do, Chaya, is I want to bring it back to the Israeli context. And I want to ask you, how is it that the SRS fits into the Israeli ecosystem of rabbinical programs? And if you could talk a bit about what makes the Schechter Rabbinical Seminary unique. And then take it a step further, what makes a Masorti rabbi special?
Mm-hmm. Wow. So there are a few rabbinical programs, ordination programs in Israel, as you mentioned. And
just a few.
We're the best. There are a few very excellent programs for ordination in Israel. And I think, well, first of all, just to say the obvious, but it's an important obvious, is that we're the seminary for ordaining conservative rabbis. And conservative rabbis, Masorti rabbis, are primarily ordained in order to serve Masorti Judaism. And I say Masorti Judaism, not Masorti Kehilot per se, because for I think since the inception of conservative Judaism, I think we've seen ourselves as representative servers, conveners of Klal Yisrael, of all of Israel, Catholic Israel, if you will,
the entirety of the Jewish
people, and so when we go out there, when we in our intention to ordain our rabbis, we do intend for them to serve Masorti communities, and we do intend for them to bring Masorti Judaism, but we intend for them to bring Masorti Judaism to the entire Israeli public, with the firm belief that the message of Masorti Judaism, of a serious, learned, committed to halakha, a Judaism that's serious and learned and committed to halakha, that evolves and progresses, is an important message for the entirety of the Jewish people, and specifically in Israel, where we have Judaism that is becoming more and more fundamentalist, more and more extremist. It's such an important mission of ours to bring this message, not because we want everyone to be conservative, but because we want everyone to open their minds and become more, and for the tapestry of Jewish identities in Israel to become richer. So this is the conservative seminary, and we have wonderful collaborations with other seminaries. We learn together. We have seminars together. We come together to learn about things that are important to all of us. We just had a seminar to discuss how we study halakha with the help of AI. And of course, that went to the areas of what should we do, what should we not do, what should we be worried about, what should we be careful about, how we can be responsible about this. And that's something that should be on everyone's minds, not just conservative Jews. And in fact, people from from a number of different seminaries participated in that day, and we try to do as much as we can of that. Our program, I think, is unique in that it has a special combination between having a very, very high level of serious text study, an intense kind of yeshivish or Beit Midrash learning, combined with an orientation towards placement. We know and we are working towards the fact that our students will serve in the field, and they need to leave here with concrete tools of how to serve in the field, how to make their voices heard, how to be articulate, how to be effective writers, how to give interviews in the media, how to build budgets, how to do marketing, all of those tools that aren't necessarily rabbinic, but need to be implemented. You have to master, you have to know those tools in order to be effective in the field.
Amazing, Chaya. So I want to go deeper in that direction in just a moment, but I also want to be cognizant. I want to invite everyone out there in our audience that if you have questions for Rabbi Chaya Rowen Becker, you're welcome to put those questions in the chat. And towards the end of our hour together, we're going to take some of those questions and address those questions. So I want to continue, Chaya, and ask you to go through what are some of the challenges that our students face as they're about to go out into the field? And how do you feel that the rabbinical school helps our students in addressing some of those challenges?
So I think I would identify three main challenges. One of them, I hate to start from the very chol. I don't have a good word for
the
this
sand.
No, not the sand. The
secular.
The opposite from sacred. Okay. But it is a huge challenge, is that the fact that our rabbis, not only our rabbis in Israel, it's very hard to make a living as a rabbi in Israel. And sort of the easiest way, the most obvious way.
I feel like you're starting from the tachlis.
I am, because in the end of the day, that sometimes is the make or break for someone to be a rabbi or not. We've had students who study and benefit hugely from the program and then can't make a living, and then that's a problem. So the obvious way sort of is to be the rabbi of a congregation, and then you have an amuta like ours,
a nonprofit
that pays your salary. However, you have to run the nonprofit, and you have to often raise the funds for the salary, which is difficult. And if you don't have tools for that, then you won't be able to manage there or anywhere else. And so one of the things that we've taken on here at the Rabbinical Seminary, even though it's not inspiring and it's not, it's far from the sacred work that we like to do, is to teach our students how to raise funds, how to use their resources, how to build revenue creating activities, how to build up resources, how to build up collaborations, so that they can actually manage to work in the field.
Chaya, if I could sing your praises for a moment. I feel in so many ways that was part of your brilliance to begin this program, which is known as Ed Lasot, right? A time to do, right? An auspicious time to jump in and do. And that addresses giving our rabbinical students, and not just our rabbinical students, but also rabbis in the field, these kinds of critical skills in terms of strategic thinking, putting together a strategic plan for their communities, fundraising, use of social media, Divrei Torah, how to give effective, short, sweet Divrei Torah, all of this. And you really brought together a first class, a first tier group of mentors to help our students acquire those practical skills going out into the field.
Yeah. So what we did, Rav Ari Chassid and I, Rav Ari Chassid is our associate dean and basically my partner in running the rabbinical school.
I like to call him the co-pilot.
The co-pilot. Now with AI, that kind of sounds
right. True.
But yeah. So an amazing partner in leading this wonderful seminary, and he and I sat down and we said, okay, let's make a list of all the things that we had to do as rabbis in the field, and nobody taught us. And there's like people think it's funny. It's not funny when you're like setting up the makren, the projector before screening a movie at your synagogue. And of course, in Israeli synagogues, the rabbi does that because we don't have a maintenance staff that does that. We set up the chairs.
You're truly a kolbo.
We bring we set up the microphone and everything. And then someone will always crack the joke. Oh, did they teach you how to do that in rabbinical school? And I'm like, no, they didn't. So we don't teach how to connect the projector. Maybe we should, but we do teach other things that we sat down and made a list of all the things that we wish someone had taught us, and we had to learn on our own. And that's how this program was born. And as you say, it's all of those things that aren't necessarily rabbinic, but you need them to be effective. And actually, I'll address the second challenge that I think is a huge challenge, because it has to do also with this program, is loneliness. Being a rabbi is a lonely position, and I think one of the most important things that we can do for our future rabbis is give them a cohort, is give them a chavruta, is give them fellows that they can kind of walk through this difficult path together. And et lasot, the whole program is geared towards that. But et lasot says to them, you could take a seminar in social media somewhere, or you could take a fundraising seminar somewhere, but it's different to learn it with your peers. It's different to learn it with other people who are struggling with the question of, how do I take money for a funeral? How do I tell people that a bar mitzvah costs money? I know this sounds strange in America because it's obvious that everything, it's very obvious that you need to pay for these services. It's not obvious in Israel. And there's always that awkward moment of, a family comes to me in their time of need. How do I talk to them about money? And having those conversations in a group of peers who are all struggling with this, how this sacred work needs to actually be able to be implemented as it's a life work, and it's a life dedication, but it also people need to feed their families. So being able to learn those things in a cohort of rabbis or future rabbis is very, very valuable. And I think the third challenge that our rabbis will face is the fact that conservative Judaism in Israel is not recognized officially by the state, by the religious institutions of the state. And it's constantly a struggle, and it's constantly, and there'll always be someone who will knock you down because they'll delegitimize you or they'll humiliate you in public. And that's also something that people need. This is another reason why people need each other, to be able to be a strong group and be able to be inspired from each other, and to have inspiring years here, to be able to go out with the strength, to be able to say, this is who we are. It's a true path. It's a legitimate path for sure. It's an authentic path. It's a compelling path.
And it's so critically needed in the state of Israel.
And
even though, as you say, Chaya, that in so many ways it's still viewed as a netazar, this foreign implant in the country.
Yes. Although I have to say that in my experience over the last 20 years that I've been in this realm, I felt things change. I feel how it's different today to walk into a to get into a cab in Israel, and the cab driver will say, "What do you do for a living?" If 20 years ago I used to say, "Oh, I'm in education," or something like that, today I'll say I'm a rabbi, and in Hebrew, ani rabbah, so that's even more sort of specific. I'll say I'm a rabbi, and more often than not, the response will be, "Oh, I went to a bar mitzvah in somewhere, I know another woman rabbi or whatever." So things are changing. The times, the winds are changing.
It's so encouraging to hear. Chaya, before you spoke about the diversity of students that we have in the rabbinical program, can you speak a bit more in depth about the students that we have, the typical profile of the student that comes into our program?
So I don't know that we have a typical profile. We have some students grew up in the conservative movement, either in Israel or abroad, made aliyah, and are now building their lives in Israel. And some students come from other streams of Judaism. Some students grew up chiloni, secular in Israel, and discovered their Jewish passion later in life. And we also have students who grew up Orthodox, dati leumi, and who have decided that they don't have a place there, and this is their place. Often it's inspired by by gender issues and LGBT issues of wanting to have Judaism that is true to their values, but also and often women who grew up Orthodox who don't have a place of equality in Orthodoxy, but also sometimes it's just people who feel this is more authentic for them, and this is more that conservative Judaism deals more authentically with the big questions of Judaism. And so we really have a very interesting collection of people in terms of backgrounds, also in terms of where they come from in the world. As I said, some grew up in Israel, some come from abroad. We have students from France and Brazil and England and the US, and I'm sure I'm forgetting. These are the Israeli students. I'm not talking about the Seminary or the JTS students. Russia. And so it's a very, very interesting bunch. And also in terms of their passions, we have artists and paitanim, people who, were
poets or
experts in
liturgical poets, music. We'll call them. Yes.
And students who are who come from not informal education, and teachers from the school system, and really a very varied backgrounds and varied interests, and it really forms a very vibrant community of students who will challenge each other and help each other grow, and in a good way, and also politically. By the way, we have left to right, and we have political arguments in the Beit Midrash, but I think there really is a sincere general feeling that it's l'shem shamayim. It's the arguments are
for the sake of heaven.
For the sake of heaven, for the sake of a good future for Israel, and a good future for the Jewish people. And there's a real sense of respect among the students, and it just makes for a really interesting and vibrant community.
It's so beautiful that you're able to model that type of tolerance and pluralism in our Beit Midrash. It's so desperately needed. Chaya, you know well that the past few years have been very, very challenging for all of us living here in Israel. And my next question has to do with this constant state of war that we have been living through. I'm curious to hear what impact this has had on our students, and what it is that we're doing to support our students through war.
Wow. So that's a biggie. We started here at Schechter 3 months before the beginning of the war. And the war broke out just a week or so before, or 2 weeks before we were supposed to open our semester here, my first semester here at Schechter.
You remember vividly how we were going through renovations of our library and administrative building. And so we were all cramped into the academic building. And I'll just share quickly that I ended up in basically a mamad. My office was in a bomb shelter in that building. And I thought to myself, how comical it is that the new president of Schechter is sitting in a bomb shelter. Little did I know that would become prime real estate for us.
Wow.
Quite.
And we also share parenthood to not together, but we share the experience of parenthood to combat soldiers, women, yes, female combat soldiers. And the day the war broke out, my husband was called up to reserve duty, and it was an incredibly difficult way to start that year. And we had students whose partners were in lengthy reserve duty, combat duty. We had students who themselves were in lengthy reserve duty. And we're still dealing with the fact that one of our upcoming graduates missed so much studies for reserve because of reserve duty, and we're trying to help him make it. It became in many ways a personalized program, helping each and every one of them with their own, all the different needs, all the difficult and challenging needs. Thanks to contributions of our supporters, we were able to offer therapy sessions for some of our students who came back with very, very difficult and challenging needs from their service, and also private tutoring. And it just really enlarged all of the needs that students had, and the needs of and our needs as a system, as a school, to be able to adjust ourselves so we don't punish people, God forbid, for serving and missing class. And so they don't miss the knowledge that they need in order to be able to serve. So that's been incredibly challenging. And it's also been inspiring because it's been something that we really came together in support of each other, and with ideas and initiatives to be of support and inspiration to the public. Our students led prayer vigils at Hostage Square several times, and volunteered all over the place, and volunteered in communities in order to be a source of support.
Chaya, one other piece that I want to add to that hopper of initiatives and inspiration that you're talking about is the B'chol Nafshach program. I'm in awe of you that you had the vision to put this program into place. Can I ask you to talk a bit about B'chol Nafshach and its impact?
Yeah, so this is apropos our daughters, right? We always think it's Mother's Day, and I think it's I think everything that I've ever done since I became a mother has been inspired by my motherhood, has been sort of I think projects at the synagogue that I've initiated, and now this as well. It's all sort of been, how do I make this world a better place for my children? How do I create communities that I want my children to grow up in? And having a daughter in combat service, and as the war proceeded, another daughter who then entered combat service, and seeing them and their friends and the prices that they've paid, and these 18, 19, 20-year-olds coping with no real tools to cope with these awful experiences that no one should ever have to deal with. we asked ourselves what tools do we have to offer support and strength and and a reason to get up in the morning. I think also for us, but also for them. And so we created this program Bechol Nafshach, with all of your soul.
It was so beautiful how at the beginning it was a series of retreats, and we partnered with the Educational Center at Kibbutz Hanaton, another very dear colleague of ours, Rabbi Yoav Endi.
Yeah. We thought that what we wanted to do was have retreats. And we started with a retreat in partnership, as you mentioned, in partnership with Midreshet Hanaton. And we did an Elul retreat, a week-long retreat of intense study. This is what we know. This is what we know how to do. And it didn't start out as a sort of therapeutic thing, but we realized with time that that real therapy is not by sitting around and sharing, and is important, but really in the end, what gives you relief is having a sense of purpose in life, is knowing that what you're doing is for a good purpose, and is knowing who you are and why you're doing what you're doing. And so being able to connect to each other and connect to themselves through Jewish text, through understanding their Jewish identity, through being inspired by Jewish texts, and having everything come together, Judaism and Israel, and survival and future, and all of that being able to be a conversation of hope and of life and of purpose and of meaning, that has been incredibly meaningful to these young people who are either in service or shortly after service or in and out of reserve duty. And so it started out with a series of seminars, and then they said, "Wait a second, this isn't enough. We need more of this throughout the year." So we opened, from in 2 weeks' notice, we opened a semester of weekly study sessions for 2.5 hours each, once a week. The group comes together in the evening and studies Talmud and Halacha, and some of the issues are relevant to sort of life, and some of them are theoretical, but all of the program comes together to give them a sense of belonging, and of understanding themselves better as Jews, as conservative Jews or liberal Jews in Israel. And it's been an amazing process I think for them, and definitely for us.
Thank you, Chaya. I truly commend you on launching this particular initiative. So before I take us to the finish line with my last 2 questions, I just want to see if we have some questions from our audience out there that we'd like to address to Rabbi Chaya Rowen Baker.
A tip: how to attract new members to the congregation.
Wow.
How would you attract new members to the congregation? What creative ideas would you bring to the table, Chaya?
So there isn't a simple answer to that, obviously, but I think there are 2 principles that I would put on the table. One is think about what people really need. I think that's what Bechol Nafshach is sort of doing, is what do these people need at this point? We want young people, we want pipeline, what do they need, not what do we need. So that's one. And the other is make sure that programs that you plan in order to bring new people are systemically intertwined with everything else that's happening in the synagogue. So there can't be just a program that's for young families and it has nothing to do with everything else that's happening. And on the other hand, there can't be strategic building of the synagogue without thinking of the many different cohorts. So everything kind of needs to be intertwined so that connections are made, and sort of like little electric connections between parts of our brains. That's kind of the image I have. Is that nothing stands on its own. Everything is intertwined and connected. That's the essence of community. And that's what's compelling about community. So I think if people feel like they came maybe for a play with their kids, but they felt community, that's going to be compelling.
Again, B'chol Nafshach, which has many intended and unintended positive outcomes, was intended as part to attract and identify future rabbinical students. But that's not the only program. What other goals do you have?
For B'chol.
So B'chol Nafshach was intended to attract rabbinical students to come into the rabbinical, so just like you were talking about the pipeline coming in. That's part of the vision. I feel like the essence of B'chol Nafshach is really, as you said, Chaya, meeting these young adults where they are and addressing their particular needs. But just thinking in a more expansive, direction, what are, other, pipelines that we have to bring students in?
So you mentioned B'chol Nafshach. It's really, I think one of the things that we really still need to work hard at, and we haven't. There's some programs in the making. We'll talk about that in the next episode that but the thing is that we have a huge challenge in conservative Judaism in Israel, Masorti Judaism in Israel, which is that we don't really have an educational system. We have Noam, which is a youth movement, the youth movement of the Masorti movement, which is an amazing institution. I grew up in Noam. I met my husband in Noam. I owe probably everything in my life to Noam. But we don't have Noam has to do too many things. It's not an educational system, and we don't have an educational system.
I feel like in many ways that's where I'm thinking now in this moment of our rabbinical students, David Oz and Nisim Azban, and their program Be'erit.
Exactly. Right? That's what I was
great minds think alike.
Yeah. So we need to create infrastructure for young adults who want to grow up like this. And currently they don't really have a spiritual home, an educational home. And so one of the initiatives that are two of our rabbinical students who you mentioned, David Oz and Nisim Asban, an initiative of theirs is to create a yeshiva, a house of learning for young adults right after high school and going into the army and seeing them through the army in this framework. There are many, many Orthodox yeshivot. There are no conservative yeshivot of this type. And this is a way where we can raise the future generation of conservative Jews in Israel who are committed, who are learned, who are strongly identified, who are proud conservative Jews. And they, this is what we were trying to do. What we are trying to do with B'chol Nafshach also. They're not all going to find themselves in the rabbinical school. They're not all going to become leaders, but we have to start somewhere creating our people. So that's B'chol Nafshach, and that's Be'erit, and that's and I really think that we hopefully will be collaborating a lot more with the Masorti movement to create all these infrastructures that we're still missing.
So Chaya, two final questions that I want to get to as we near the finish line. The first is there a message that you'd like to share with the broader community about the importance of supporting rabbinic education here in Israel and in the larger world? Why is it so important for us to be supporting rabbinic education?
Rabbinical students are still a small minority in Israel, right? It takes so much courage and effort to be a rabbinical student in Israel, and even more so to then go and serve congregations and communities and the public in Israel. I mentioned before the challenges and the hardships and not being recognized and not being funded and not knowing whether or not you'll be able to make a living after you finish this. And people put their lives aside and dedicate themselves to studying for 3 years, sometimes 4 years here with us. And they do that because they look around the state of Israel and they say, this is an amazing project and we've come so far and there are so many amazing things about the state of Israel, but there's still so much work that needs to be done. And
we're young.
I mentioned this before as well: polarization, extremism, Judaism that we sometimes can't be proud of, and we must, if we want this state of Israel to be here for many years to come, we have to change the landscape of Judaism in the state of Israel. We must create a Judaism that is varied and is multifaceted and is pluralistic and has a true strong place for many different brands of Judaism, conservative Judaism among them, and that is proud of a voice that is open-minded and accepting, and while being serious and committed. And so our students look around and they see this and they say, that's me. I'm going to do that. I'm going to change Israel. And these are 1, 2, 3, we're few. But they're amazing people with hopefully amazing effect in the future on many people. And there's such an amazing ripple effect that rabbis have when they do this sacred work, that I really believe that this one can make a huge difference. And I think we all need for this to happen. And if we have a group of dedicated, smart, interesting, and devoted people who are willing to go out and do that difficult work, we need to give them our backs, and we need to support them, and we need to give them, make them able to dedicate these years to studying. And also, we also need to support their work in the future, because that's how they're going to be effective.
And I will say very, very clearly, a note of hakarat hatov, a note of deep appreciation to all of you out there who are already supporting our Schechter Rabbinical Seminary and all of the great work that we're doing at Schechter Institutes. We are so indebted to your generosity and support in allowing these students to realize their dream of going into the rabbinate in Israel. Chaya, I feel like two rabbis sitting here speaking about the seminary, the only appropriate way to end this interview would be with words of Torah. In the spirit of Ki Mitzion Tetzei Torah, out of Zion shall go forth Torah, and also acknowledging that about 12 days from now, we're going to be celebrating the holiday of Shavuot. I want to turn and ask, what is your favorite teaching? What is an inspiring teaching that you want to leave everyone with, a gift going into Shavuot?
Wow, that's such a hard question. There's so many for different occasions. I'll say something for this moment, just for this moment. And that is one of my favorite verses in the Tanakh is Nachamu Nachamu Ami Yomar Elohechem. Be comforted. Be comforted, my people. So says God, your God. And I love this verse for 3 reasons. One, it's the beginning of my bat mitzvah haftarah. And so therefore it's one of the first, really one of the first verses in the Tanakh that I spent time thinking about. You don't take things so seriously when you're a child. And then when you start studying for your bar bat mitzvah, you're like, wait a second, this speaks to me. And I was always very, very proud that this was my bat mitzvah, haftara. And it's not to be taken lightly that a little girl who's 12 years old, who was the only girl in her class who did a bat mitzvah going up to the Torah and reading Haftarah, even though I went to school in Tali. And for me, that was a formative experience that I have ownership of this, and this is mine, and I can do anything in this in this realm of Judaism. So that's my verse, but also I love this verse because my children sing it in such a moving way when we transition from Yom HaZikaron to Yom HaAtzmaut, and it's just recently.
From Israeli Memorial Day to Israeli Independence Day.
Yes. Yeah. And which is always so significant, and every year it feels more and more significant. And finally, I love this verse because I think it's so Jewish and so importantly Jewish to be able to be in a moment of destruction and to say, comfort will come, resolution will come, future will come, hope will come, and to be able to imagine good when you're amidst difficulty is something that's very Jewish, and I think it's something that really, really holds us as a people, has always held us as a people, and still holds us as a people, and gives me koach, gives me energy, and the fortitude to be able to be in this difficult moment, and to say we have to be able to imagine a better future.
It is not Sof Pasuk yet. It is not the end of the verse. Chaya, I cannot thank you enough for this precious, precious hour together. Devarim hayotzim min halev nichnasim lelev. Words that come from the heart enter the heart. And truly, the words that you shared with us over the course of this hour entered all of our hearts. Thank you so, so much. We already look forward to our next installation of Spotlight on Schechter, when on June 7th, I will be speaking with Rivka Greenfield. Rivka is our new incoming Director General of Tali, and we look forward to getting a snapshot into Rivka's dream of where it is that she'd like to take our Tali Education Fund over the next 5 years. Thank you so much to all of you, and again, a very, very happy Mother's Day. Thank you, Rabbi Chaya Rowen Baker, for joining us for this hour.
Pleasure. Thank you.